evening, everybody. Welcome to episode. I forgot to switch on the light, so I was in dark, so now I am in light. All right. So, welcome to episode 49 of the SMB Talks. It's fabulous. 48 amazing folks have come here and spoke about their journey, inspired all of us. So today I have 49 awesome individual who has joined me today. So I am super excited for today's episode because this person, I think, is very young. He has done so much in his short life so far. So it's my pleasure to introduce Tamseel Hussain. He's the founder and CEO of PlucTV. I don't know whether I'm saying it correct. It's People Like You Create. So I will hear it the right pronunciation from him. He has over a decade of experience giving room to youth-led virtual narratives and is now building storytelling and technology solutions for the age of the creator economy. So if this pandemic has taught us something, it's that content creators, we are all content creators. We are creating all the time. I love content. I love creating content. So this conversation is going to be amazing. He has already trained more than 1 lakh people on mobile storytelling and social media. His platform today has over 31,200 plus storytellers. That's mind blowing if you ask me. And is present in over 16 cities and has published over 6,000 plus stories, is available in 5 languages and reaches over, pay attention to this, reaches over 500 million people worldwide. He has worked extensively to drive citizen solutions during various humanitarian crises and COVID-19. He has previously worked with organizations like Change.org, Oxfam India. How cool is that, right? You can also find his stories published in CNN International, Guardian, and Channel News Asia. He is a member of the working group of National Platform on Vaccine Confidence and the Inter-Citizen Council of the Billion Second Institute. And this is not his only work. He has founded several award-winning platforms like LetMeBreathe.in, India's largest climate change and sustainability stories platform, and SocialSaheli.com, powering India's rural women entrepreneurs. So I am super excited. I don't know about you, but let me bring him on. Hey, Tom. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. I was having a very interesting conversation coming right before this with another entrepreneur friend of mine in Maharashtra. And it was very interesting.
Very
I think
nice.
we were talking about how do you do a personal and professional life balance and what are the tricks to it. So it was exciting. Yeah. But great to be here.
Right.
And so much for the introduction. First of all, thank you so much for calling me young. I just love it. I can definitely be honest, the startup journey for the last 3.5 years, 3 years and 8 months has made me old for sure. Yeah.
Right. Fantastic. I'm so happy you're here, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And just to give a background, SMB Talks is something which I started last year when the pandemic kicked in, and my sole purpose was to bring on people like you, so that you can share your journey. And a lot of people were going through a lot of tough times, and I wanted to bring some kind of inspiration for them. They can hear your stories, take something out of it, and do something. Keep going, taking one day at a time. So that's the whole purpose of this. So what I've done is I've curated a set of questions for you. It will be about creator economy. Am I saying it correct? Is it Pluck.tv?
Yes, it's Plug.tv. I just want to say
Oh,
people like us create. So the thinking about it was how can you build an inclusive community of exclusive creators? So that's where people like us
absolutely.
create.
Thank God I didn't embarrass myself. I said it right, the right way. Right. So Pluck.tv, I will have questions about your past work, your other platforms, other initiatives, about you, basically. We will end it with that. So if you're ready, we can start.
Yes, whenever you're ready, Vivek. And thank you so much
All
for
right.
having me here. Yeah.
All right. So my first question, why I found you very interesting is, if I look at your entire profile or your journey, it has an element of storytelling weaved into it. Whatever role you are doing, whatever thing, whatever projects you have done, it has an element of storytelling. So, how did this passion for stories originate, or where did it come from?
So I think the beginning of it was very interesting. I used to travel with my dad a lot as a child, right? Everywhere, be it like smaller villages in Himachal to like cities in other parts of the country. As I grew older, I think he had a rule: if you're 18, then only you can travel outside the country. Before that, it's within the country. And I realized that more than school, more than college, more than anything else, the only thing that used to inspire me was listening to people's stories, and it translated into sitting at cafes, sitting at small places where people are cooking. Imagine being in a village and you're actually talking to the sarpanch of the village who owns a restaurant, and it's this beautiful moment where, which tells you what the village is going through and what the stories really are, and it really tells you about various things about life. And that's where I started sitting at airports, sitting at cafes, sitting at various things, talking to all kinds of people and absorbing their stories. And it really influenced and changed my path, right? Like I remember I one of the biggest influences that I ever had was that I was in Oroville. I don't know if you know about that place. Oroville is
Yes,
a place
yes,
in
yes.
Pondicherry, and I was staying there for about a year and a half, and it was fascinating. Right at that point, I was this typical Delhi urban boy, right, who went to Oroville to understand sustainability, and it was just nothing but stories. How Oroville is a man-made forest, and how everything converted to sustainability, and how it's brewing some of the most iconic architecture, art things across the world, and that really changed my trajectory in life, like my thinking and everything. And hence we are here. I mean, I think 3.5 years ago we were on a landfill where Plug started. So yeah.
Right. Right. Auroville has a special magic to it. Anyways, it is kind of India's own Burning Man or something like that. So it has
Yeah.
got the touch of art and a lot of interesting folks, meditation going on and stuff like that. I love Auroville, by the way. All right.
And also
So even
startups, some
yeah,
amazing
please.
startups there. Yeah, like some of the best startups are there. I think some of the most innovative startups built in the middle,
Oh,
like that whole land was barren, right? And then people
right.
built forests over there to survive. It's the
Right.
iconic thing about humanity. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. All right. So my next question, as I introduced you, it's you have trained a lot of people on mobile storytelling and social media. So what is the driving force behind those efforts? Because those numbers are pretty huge, and storytelling is not something which you can. It's a tough thing to impart knowledge in. So what was the driving force behind that effort?
So it goes exactly back. I'm so happy I can talk about the landfill incident. It was about 3 years and 8 months ago. And I was doing a lot of experiments. I was working with Oxfam long back, and I quit for about a year where I was experimenting with various things, right? One of the experiments was to see, I was working with a few architects who were really trying very hard to redesign Chandigarh's Sector 17 market. It's very popular, right? And the
Right.
theme was to see if they redesign it, how can young people come back to the market instead of going to the mall, which is very popular there, called the L&T Mall, right? As they
Right.
call it,
Right.
or L&T Mall, right? And that process was very interesting. And one of the experiments I was doing was where I organized a training for about 10 waste pickers on a landfill in Nizamuddin, where you had Instagram as an official platform present, you had Hindustan Times recording the training live, and the whole theme was to see if waste pickers can use their mobile phone and actually start telling stories on Instagram. And the goal was not
Wow.
at that time, you didn't have a TikTok with it, right? You didn't have all
Right.
these
Right.
things. At that point in
Right.
time, these stories were unique. Like imagine a waste picker who has this typical thinking, like where people have a perception that a waste picker will pick up waste and not segregate waste, and what a heroic thing that the person is doing. You actually
Right.
saw waste pickers learning it, making their Instagram profiles, and just using the story format that Instagram had picked up from Snapchat, and actually telling their stories regularly. And the questions that people were giving out, and it went out to thousands of people, right? And they were able to build their own following. And the questions that people
Right.
were asking were, oh, wait, I had no idea that waste pickers wear leather jackets. Oh, I had no idea that waste pickers own a mobile phone, right? But what happened was
Right.
very interesting. Is they were able to carry this on for a while. They even did a bit of a campaign and all those things, but they weren't able to earn a single penny out of their story, right? And
Right.
the goal was to see if they can attract newer audiences on a platform like Instagram. And I
Right.
remember having a conversation with the team of Instagram, and they say, yeah, but they should be able to figure out a way to earn revenue. And at that point in time, there was no creator economy as a thing. It
Right.
is something which is the pandemic has fast tracked it, right? And
Right.
that's pretty much what the beginning of it was. And it really, really, it made me realize that luck is something that can really change the way people think. So when that first training got over, we actually traveled across the country before we launched our platform for the first 2 years, training all kinds of people. I mean, I think I remember training about 200 farmers in Punjab, and the whole thinking
Wow.
was, right? Imagine. And the farmers got in touch with us. We didn't get in touch with them. They said, please come and train us so that we can know how to communicate better online, because it seems like everybody speaks for us except for us. And when we did
Right.
the training, we thought that the impact would be something else. But they started using a WhatsApp group to start training each other using video storytelling on how to do organic farming. Right? That's the
Wow.
biggest thing to do, right? You know, like an organic farmer is someone who's economically more stable, and more farmers want to get into it. And since then, we've trained doctors, storytellers, filmmakers, even actors, and even so many other people who just want to learn storytelling, about 100,000 of them, out of which we selected about 31,200 creators who use our platform and form communities
Right.
on their own. It's been this beautiful experience. I mean, if I
Absolutely.
can share an
Absolutely.
story, I remember we were at the Kumbh for about a month, where the goal was to see if we can train young people who are at the Kumbh to see if they can use visual storytelling to save children. And this is with Mr. Kailash Satyarthi, where we're doing this and seeing
Right.
how they can support the efforts of saving children at the Kumbh. And it was mind blowing, right? About 160 people total made about 400 videos in 30 days. It became so iconic that people were noticing their videos on Twitter, on Facebook, on various profiles, and they were able to say that, oh, you are the one who's saving children, right? I found this child who was drugged at the Kumbh. Please help him, take him to the police and save him. And it actually saved lives. It actually changed behaviors. And we soon saw all the brands who were at the Kumbh, they had their stalls. They all started focusing on saving children versus all the other branding issues that they were doing. So it was I mean, these are impacts that we saw across the country, and it's been amazing to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Stories have its special power to move people, move masses to get something done. You know, stories have that. I'm so glad that you are. There are people like you who are driving this kind of initiatives. You know, it's tough. It's really tough. You just mentioned the whole thing in hardly 5 minutes, but I can only imagine the kind of effort that would have gone into that, you, your team, etc., etc. But hats off to that. You know, crazy, crazy, crazy effort actually.
Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Vivek. And thanks to technology, we were able to reduce that effort by about 70% when we launched the platform about a year back. Now, so many things are automated where we don't have to travel across the country to do this. So it's been a
Right.
great experience that way. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. So you just touched upon creator economy, right? So you are a big proponent of creator economy. My It's a two-part question. Number one, why is that? Why are you a big fan of creator economy, and where do you think, you know, because you are in the middle of all these things, where do you think the creator economy is headed towards?
See, it's very interesting. Vivek. Creator economy as a term has only become popular in the last 2 years. In US, about much earlier, but like in other countries, just the last 2 years, especially in the pandemic, where more and more people started becoming creators. But where did it
Right.
all really start, right? First, we were told that there's a social media platform like Facebook where you can share your status messages and you can put up your pictures. Then we were told that more and more tools will be added to this. There's a video platform called YouTube where you can upload your video, to a point where it became so comfortable for users to use their phones as soon as more and more people started owning mobile phones to start making videos and start building
Right.
their own communities online, right? And just when that was happening, the amount of algorithms and the amount of changes that various social media platforms are having, it gave birth to something called creator economy, right? Where a lot
Right.
of creators are monetizing whatever they're doing. I mean, just think of it. If you're on Instagram and you have more than 1 million followers, you first have to know how to make an image post. Then you have to know how to make a 10-minute video, story format, now Reels, which is like a very, very
Right.
popular thing. And slowly,
Right.
soon it keeps increasing, and it all is based on their algorithms, right? And creator
Right.
economy is this beautiful space where, I mean, I think there are about 50 million creators across the world right now. Out of the 50 million people, only 24,000 to 25,000 people actually get benefits of the creator economy. When I say
Right.
benefits, they earn a lot of money because they have a huge following, they're earning through ads, they're earning through brand sponsorships, and the rest of them are still trying to get that pool of money. And it's this beautiful
Right.
situation. We've got about 50 million people who actually call themselves creators, like you mentioned before we were starting the podcast, right?
Right.
And that's what drove me, right? What happens to the mid level and nano level creators, the rest of the, like, there's 1% is how we call it. 25,000 people are the 1%. The rest of the people who are really struggling to do it. A lot of creators
Right.
who come to PlucTV, for example, have tried their hand on YouTube for about 6 to 9 months. They weren't able to build a community. It was very difficult to get audiences. The algorithm kept changing. And it's a very tier system, right? You get favored for it.
Right.
So when we
Right.
started Plug TV, the kind of audience that we had, we really wanted everybody to get opportunities, regardless of the algorithm, regardless of your following. If you have a talent of telling stories, you should be able to do this. Going forward, I think when we look at it, US is already seeing it. There are about more than 40, 50 companies which have actually come up in the last 2 years to only service a 1% of creators, or like slowly now increasing their reach to all these other creators. And the reason is because now creators are going through a behavior where once they've actually got the fame, once they've actually gotten everything, they want to move their community to monetization. When you look at
Right.
platforms like Patreon, when you look at all these things, which is clearly based on exclusive content that can actually help you monetize. You have shop
Right.
commerce, which is coming up. Everything is catered towards, if you're a great creator online, how can you earn more revenue? And how can
Right.
you fund yourself to go forward? And if you look at the numbers, mid-level and nano creators in India, if they're really good, they're able to earn about 45 to 50,000 a month. Bigger people, it goes into lakhs. And when I
Right.
started Plug, only the 1% was earning like lakhs and lakhs of rupees, and the rest of them were never even into it. Which is where we're
Right.
trying to bridge the gap to make sure that more and more creators can earn revenue, because if they're talented, they understand that they're great creators, and they're able to earn revenue through various techniques that they can use. In simple
Absolutely.
terms,
Absolutely.
going
Right.
forward, I think right now India's at a discovery phase, right? Where all the platforms are focusing on content discovery more than monetization. And the monetization journey for India has just started. Where we're
Right.
moving towards a phase where social media platforms will just be marketing platforms, right? And
Right.
creators will not have their own platforms or their own communities where they can base it and earn revenues out of it, or their own brand relationships. It's a very interesting
Right.
time we're in as a country because we can dominate it across the world.
Right, absolutely. Because just when you mentioned, I realized that I've come across so many platforms that are helping creators monetize their content by gating it, etc., etc. Even if it is written content or video content or whatever it is. Fantastic. All right, so content creators have risen up from across the globe during the pandemic, especially. So, what do you think are their prospects in the future? By them, I mean the people, the couple who is on Instagram Reels imitating old Hindi songs and people who are imitating old Hindi dialogues, or that guy who is having almost like 102K followers, just acting on songs. So, what are their future prospects according to you?
So I think when I look at the creator economy, there's so many different types of creators, right? You have creators who are mainly creating premium content, right? For example,
Right,
these are creators who are on YouTube. These are creators who get picked up by OTT platforms. These are creators who have a loyal fan following for like a little longer form videos, which people
right,
really want to engage.
right,
The latest trend, which actually TikTok introduced across the world, and if you look at US is completely transforming the market, is the real creators, right? And the
right,
real trend is really based that there will be a hashtag, there will be a trend which you need to follow and imitate people to do it. I don't
right,
consider this in a premium content selection, right? It is a great way to get new audiences because the algorithm is pushing it. In
right,
my opinion, creators who've been creating premium content are the ones who are going to face the test of time. And YouTube is the classic example, right? Creators who've been
right,
creating on YouTube are some of the most premium creators because they're creating long form content. They're creating content which is engaging new types of users. And when you look at the real type of content, it is really popular right now. And it's really occupied, I think, the highest view time that you see globally. Going forward, when we look at it in a year or two, and especially when creator economy has taken shape properly, where more and more
right,
creators are shifting so many people onto their platforms, onto their communities, all these mediums will just become a a marketing angle, right? Like you're able to reach either new users or it's a great revenue option for you. So, in
Right.
a nutshell, I think we're entering towards this beautiful moment where the world will realize the real power of premium content, right?
Absolutely.
Which stands the
Absolutely.
test of time.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. All right. So now we know that there are a lot of content creators coming up, and we all like to scroll through Reels or when TikTok was there, through TikTok, and just get entertained in half an hour's time. It's like an endless pit. You can keep going on, keep scrolling up, but there is a lot of pain for the people who are creating it. We just consume it as a consumer because it is freely available, but there are a lot of challenges these content creators face. So being a content creator yourself, what are some of these major challenges faced by creators today?
I think one of the biggest things is creator burnout, like you mentioned, right? The amount of platforms that you need to put your content on because there's so many new opportunities. Even when you look at as a country in India, you have Moj, you have ShareChat, you have Josh, such amazing apps which have come up which help you connect to your audiences in a new form. And there's so
Right.
many new apps coming up. I think creator burnout is something which is the biggest challenge that people are finding because they're trying to do everything as a
Right.
creator. If you're a creator, figure out what type of creator you are and focus in that area. And I think that's the biggest thing that people don't realize, that because if reels are popular doesn't mean I have to only create reels, right? Which means if I'm good at creating a different type of content, I would rather want to focus on that. And that's something that people need to know, and this is what leads me to one of the most important questions which are going to pop up, is authenticity. How
Right.
authentic are you as a creator? And which is what I feel like reels and all these things, they're based on trends, right? They're replicating various things. But if you're an authentic creator, you will be able to really overcome a lot of these challenges, which is your burnout, which is basically lack of authenticity of content because you're literally seeing what all content I can create, which is going to go popular. And these are two
Right.
things which I think would really overcome, which should help a lot of creators overcome. And third, which we really work with our creators a lot, is new skills. The first skill is how comfortable you are in front of the phone camera or the camera, and to how well you can communicate. And these are skills, if you've seen the generation after us, Vivek, there's such amazing communicators and storytellers, right?
Right.
And during
Right.
the pandemic, we also saw some transformational things where we saw doctors becoming some of the most powerful storytellers, right?
Right.
Which we couldn't imagine earlier. And now they're such powerful storytellers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I remember MBBS boy and girl, they're junior doctors in one of the Kerala's medical college. They did a Rasputin dance, and now they are celebrities in Kerala.
Like they're huge.
They it's huge. Anything can happen with content creation. You never know what is going to happen. So keep creating. That's all we can say.
Yeah.
Right. So next question, it's a bit of a philosophical question, and you're the right person to answer that. So I wanted to include this question: can storytelling bring in real social change and behavioral shifts? If the answer is yes, how?
Well, Vivek, that is such a beautiful question. And I think it is a very important question. So let's see how storytelling influences change, right? First, like you mentioned, stories tell you a lot of things. And when we look at creators telling stories, they're either inspired by a creator or they're really desperate to tell their story, right? These are two things that creators really go through. The first sign of behavior change that storytelling actually gives is people wanting to tell consistent stories and improve themselves. If you go back about 5 years ago when I made my first video, I looked so stupid in it, right? I was the worst person occupying the camera. And now, like anchoring documentaries and all those things, you go through this journey where you really realize what kind of a public speaker you are and how well you want to communicate. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we've seen behavior change. But if I give you an example from our community, Let Me Breathe, we saw this beautiful moment when there was this moment when Prime Minister Modi had almost said that we're going to ban plastic. I don't know if you remember that. But the
Yeah.
whole country was excited. There were a lot of anxiety going into various people. People were seeing what alternatives could be on plastic. And I remember some of our creators who got together and created some amazing stories around it, engaged so many people who had no idea about sustainability, who had no idea about environmental damage. The first thing they did after getting inspired by watching their stories was actually commenting and writing and replying to them saying, I have stopped using plastic bag. to a point where now they understand complex issues of renewable energy. And I think when we talk about social change, when we talk about behavior change, one of the biggest things that comes to my mind is a 17-year-old creator. Vivek, you'll be shocked to hear a story, okay? We found him, and in fact, I found him on Twitter, where every day he was tweeting at Burger King, right? Simply at Burger King, saying that Burger King stopped using plastic straw and lids on your thing. You need to stop using
Wow.
single use. It was the third day. Burger King wasn't responding. It was the third day when he did the story with Let Me Breathe, but he's still saying, "I nobody's joining me in the protest, but I'm going to come alone so that you stop doing plastic." This beautiful moment where Burger King actually replied to him,
Right.
saying, "We've actually stopped using plastic." And when you go to Burger King India now, you don't see plastic there. It's because of a 17-year-old
Absolutely.
child who actually told this
Wow.
amazing story, right? And it
Right.
influences change of transformational, like especially if your story is unbiased, if your story is authentic, and if it's really talking, showing action. If you're just
Right.
talking, not showing action, people are like, okay, great, it's a great learning. If you're a
Right.
nobody, if you're just an upcoming creator and you're actually telling people how to do this, it's beautiful. And I think when you talk
Right.
about behavior change, it transforms behaviors across levels. It's a slow process, but it
Right.
really creates positive change for longer term. When you look at rural women entrepreneurs, right? How
Right.
they are using storytelling to sell their products outside their villages. They've been, I mean, I
Right.
think pandemic has been the biggest success story for self-help groups in India, right? For some
Right.
self-help groups in India who've actually increased their business models, diverted it, changed how they do supply chain just by actually getting inspired by stories and telling stories. And they've been able to increase their business profits, right? It's when you talk about social change, when you talk about behavior change, it goes through various levels.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you the two keywords are patience and authenticity. You need to have patience to you always have to know that this is a long term game. You cannot be a creator on Monday and expect monetizing it by Wednesday or Friday. You have to you have to keep creating. You have to keep slogging till you figure out your niche, your community, and messages resonating with them. And second thing is authenticity. Authentic stories always connects, always bring in results faster. So yeah, very good, amazing answer there, right? Okay, now let's come to people like us create .tv. I loved it. uh, I checked it out thoroughly. I am thinking about what to do with it, to be honest. So talk about how did this amazing concept originate. What was the thing triggered?
So we were born at a time when the story format was becoming very popular, right? And we're
Right.
big fans of Snapchat. We're big fans of all these things. At a time when Snapchat wasn't popular in India, we used to experiment with Snapchat because they had this amazing camera tool, which used to allow you to shoot really easily, right? As compared to
Right.
any other app, Instagram also. And
Right.
I think PlucTV as a platform was launched about a year and 2 months ago because it was getting to when we enable creators, we support them in production. We support them in producing their first show, right? And the
Right.
space we saw was there were two kinds of spaces getting really popular, right? You had these social media platforms and the short video platforms which were booming, and the second were OTT platforms, right? And
Right.
and there's a vast difference, right? If you want to put up a video on YouTube, you can easily put it up. If you want to make an
Right.
Instagram story, you can easily do it. If you want to make a highly produced show, it takes you about a year and a half to see how you can engage. If you know someone at Netflix, a great production house, if you have a good story, it's this long process. And there's a
Right.
gap between Netflix and Instagram, which is where we wanted
Right.
to launch Bug TV. So there are two ends to the platform. First is premium content. You see a lot of show formats. You see shows made by the most unbelievable people, ranging from a minimum of 3 episodes to a maximum of about 35 episodes, with various seasons going forward. Some stories are connected, some stories are individual. And what we really wanted to see was how anyone and everyone is able to create premium content and really consistently create it. So the second end of the platform is basically how a user can convert into a creator, where they can take a lot of courses, they can launch their own shop, they can find more monetization opportunities, more gigs. It's pretty simple when it comes to that, right? We want to really
Right.
open up a backend which helps people produce a show. If you go to an OTT platform for a highly produced show, it takes you a long time. On Plug TV, you can actually launch your own show in 2 weeks, and that's pretty much where we're heading towards, right? As compared to where we want to be. We're not dependent on
Right.
social media platforms. We want a genre. which really helps people connect with premium stories. And these stories travel longer and across all platforms. In a nutshell, that's
Right.
pretty much what PlucTV is, right? Anyone can become a
Fantastic.
creator and launch their show and
Right,
monetize it.
right, right. It will be in a way. When I'm hearing what you're saying, I feel that you are making somebody's dream come true. I know folks who would love to see something, their creativity come in taking a shape. It's really tough for a lot of people. With platforms like Plug TV, I think it's becoming possible. So it's like a lot of dreams coming true for them.
I think, Vivek, when you see our team, we're just a team of
Right.
underdogs. Right? We started off with two people about 3 years and 8 months ago, running around doing stories, convincing people about the concept. In fact, where I'm sitting, we started the company in a cafe right next to it. Right, 3.5 years ago, we were very lucky to actually have an office right next to the cafe where we started it. That's a story which we tell. But when we talk about the journey that we went through as a team, and there are about 14 of us now, most of us are underdogs. We know the need that a creator needs, and I think everything that we do is really passionate about how much can we enable more creators who are credible, authentic, and really change the way storytelling is done. And it's, I'd love to invite you to our office one day, and you should come and see.
Sure,
Yeah,
absolutely. It will be my pleasure. And trust me when I say that. Say this, Tamsil. Underdogs. I'm a huge fan of underdogs. Underdogs are rock stars. There's this big shots. All those guys irritate, bore me, but underdogs, I love them. Always be an underdog. It will be good for you. All right. So
I was,
next
I was
thing,
watching
yeah,
your previous episode, and it was
yeah,
beautiful, right? And I think it was with Dr. Anirudh, I think, or Mr. Anirudh, right? And it's this
yeah,
beautiful term he used, which is frugal innovation, and why he goes after things like
yeah.
this. And it's such a beautiful episode, and I couldn't stop
Right.
watching it. And it actually talks about underdog heroes, right, in the
Yeah.
underlying thing.
Absolutely, Doctor Anil, Doctor Malpani is one of a kind. The way he talks,
Yeah,
he's not. He's again the right now. You said underdog. He's like that. He wants to support underdogs. He doesn't want the big players, the unicorns. He wants underdogs. He nurtures them. He support them. So that's what we need. People who support underdogs. Right. All right.
yeah.
So my next question here is, with platforms like Pluck, now content creators have amazing avenues to monetize. So, what kind of impact has Pluck been able to deliver so far?
So, beyond enabling 100,000 creators and like enabling 31,200 to create with us constantly, we've been able to get a lot of shows out there, help creators who
Right,
never imagined how they would monetize, help them sustain a life without even wanting to get a job because they can do what they want to do and be passionate about what they're doing. Beyond this, I
right,
think when you look at the story, which is made by Pluck, I think the amount of credibility we've established and the amount of positive change that stories have created, be it people quitting plastic, to women entrepreneurs for the first time telling stories, to reaching out to millions and millions of people, and building an ecosystem where when you think of becoming a creator, you don't really need to think, oh, wow, I need to spend 6 months to build my community and stuff. You can actually think, I have a story, I'm going to use this
let me tell it.
platform, and I want to get my show up. And it's this
Right,
thinking where you believe, right? And I was telling you earlier, so many creators who come to us, they've struggled with YouTube, they've struggled with various platforms. Even if they've reached a certain stage on platforms like Facebook, they haven't been able to earn a revenue, and they've given up on their dream of being a beautiful storyteller. So I think when we look at it, I think the biggest impact is that, and the second is the types of story formats we do, and it's I think unique how people are building up. We're experimenting into newer formats now, which is AR-driven storytelling to dramatic storytelling, and really catered to cheap smartphones. So I think that's pretty much one of the biggest impacts. Imagine if you can get your show tomorrow, right? And there's a whole team that helps you do that. And now you have a
right,
platform where you can easily create your own show. So that way, it's been like huge. And when it comes to
right, right.
numbers, I think scaling and really scaling the last 4 years from what we were to really seeing this happen as a concept has been a beautiful, beautiful journey.
Right, right. Why I think you are awesome is, if I was in your place, I would have just spoken half an hour about my platform reaches 500 million people every month or whatever it is. I would have spoken half an hour about it. You just mentioned it in one sentence and finished it. That's why it's you are amazing. So my
I thought
next
we already
question.
500 million part. We already discussed the 500 million part, right? Yeah.
Right, right. So let's do some bragging for a moment, okay? Let's brag about Pluck for a moment. Give me some numbers you are super proud of when it comes to Pluck's achievements.
I think really seeing about 6,500 plus stories come alive out of nothing has been this beautiful moment where these stories have stayed longer on the internet, and a lot of stories that you see on Plug keep going viral over and over again. I think the first big moment when we realized that I'm going to give an example, right? And
Right,
there's a story we did where we saw where we were following a few people who were planting a Miyawaki forest, right? Which is basically saying that you can have your own forest in the backyard. And that story went viral on all platforms. At that point in time, we didn't have Plug TV as a platform, but we had a community of creators, right? And it
right,
was beautiful to see that the virality of the story was influencing people to get a lot of plants and trees and lights and forests in their own backyards, right? And
right.
that's when we realized like the way we do stories, it really inspires people to be able to get a lot of action out of them. And when we talk about, I think just in the last year and a half, um, our stories have gained millions and millions of views across all platforms, right? Which means that when you see a Plug community on Snapchat, when you see a Plug community on ShareChat, it's really bringing a lot of people who are like-minded together onto those communities and then hence converting them into Plug TV as creators. So when you look at it, I think 500 million is this beautiful number that we have. One of the proudest things that I feel when I look at it are we had a creator community of doctors of about 1,200 people before the pandemic hit. We had this model, right? We love to train communities. And by our luck or by our fortune, you can say that we were training, a lot of them were vaccine specialists, right? A lot of them were
Wow.
infectious diseases specialists. So when the pandemic hit, there was so much of misinformation. There was so much of information going out of there. And when you
Right,
know you work with scientists and doctors, they're very hesitant about communicating themselves because the way they speak, it's very data driven, very different kind of language, and very few people understand it. But when the
right,
pandemic hit in the first and second wave, we saw about 50 of them influencing the national narrative. And these are doctors who gain credibility by actually sharing what a vaccine center looks like, fight information, fight violence against doctors, all through stories. So we
right.
have a lot of these little stories like this. When it comes to out of the 500 million views, out of the 31,200 creators, each and every creator community has a story like this. The Social Saheli is a group
Absolutely.
of self-help group like entrepreneurs who are creators, right?
Right,
Beyond just business owners. When you look at Let Me Breathe, which is more than like 15,000 creators have come together. These are like chefs, these are like entrepreneurs, these are like activists, these are people who talk about sustainability and they will be able to influence so many positive things. So these are the kind of stories you will see when I talk about the positive impacts of it. And when we talk about the reach, and I think the goal that we have for this year is we want to close the year at about 100,000 creators who can really, really bring about things. And I think the latest we've seen is that there's a lot of interest developing from mid-level and nano-level creators in Africa, in Southeast Asia, where they want to use Plug as a platform to be able to launch their own shows. And I don't know if you know about it, but Nigeria, even before Netflix was there, they actually formed their own OTT platform. There's so many
Whoa.
independent creators, storytellers there. It's a very
I was not
different
aware of that.
world all out there, right? And I think it's going to be interesting to see how it grows. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to do a Twitter space with doctors because of the misinformation which was flowing when the COVID second wave was going on, but I couldn't do it. I had the doctors ready, but due to their busy schedules, crazy timings, we couldn't do it. I'm happy that you were able to do that. All right. So I know that there are lots of creators benefiting from the platform, but from you, I want to hear two or three success stories that makes Pluck an awesome platform.
So I'll start with the first one, Satyam, who's now who started his own courses on Plug to build create a community of his own in his village. Satyam did the first story with us. He's from Patna, and during the first lockdown, he did his first story where we wanted to highlight. At that point in time, I think the first wave, if you remember, doctors were really dominating the conversation, but people who were frontline workers weren't. These sanitation workers, be it ASHA workers, be it people really on the front lines. He started covering them during the lockdown through his networks, through connecting this thing. And he built an award winning show where Plug TV won the Van and for where he was able to build that episode and actually sustain himself throughout both the lockdowns on just simply creating episodes on Plug TV, where he earned quite a lot of money by just creating these episodes and won an award. The second is obviously, I think, when I look at the doctors, it's such an inspirational thing because you're not just creating premium content. The doctors were creating content which was helping people to install oxygen cylinders in their house. Doctors were creating content of actually talking about how you can treat yourself. And this is for the first time you would see this happening. And the doctor creators that Pluck has, it is just inspirational. And I think there's so many that I can't name them, but out of the 1,200, if 50 of them were dominating a national conversation, the rest of them were really volunteering to fight misinformation, to give credible
Nice.
information to. And I think when I talk about Aditya Dubey is already one story I've told you, but I can go for another one. Archana, who's a rural women entrepreneur, belongs to UP at a time when UP is really supporting self-help groups. But Archana wanted to learn how to make reels, for example, or how to make these amazing stories to talk about her achar business, right? And
Right.
recently, she distributed products to actors like Dia Mirza, to a lot of influencers in Delhi, and she was able to do that through social selling. But that's not interesting, right? The interesting part is through stories, Archana was able to increase 20% of demand across India for her product. And earlier she'd only sold it in a village. So it's this beautiful moment
Amazing.
of economy, right? Like you see this where through stories, you are increasing your business demand. Instead of
Absolutely.
building a community and relying on that, you are just making stories which are traveling across platforms and you're getting more demand for your products. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Magical. Magical. That is the right word. Right. So now, enough with Plug TV. I want to speak about Tamseel for a moment. Right. So you have, this is not your only baby. You have multiple other babies also. So one of those babies is called Let Me Breathe. You know, that's one which caught my attention. So I would like to hear a little bit about this amazing initiative, which is the need of the hour, if you ask me. Can you share some details on that?
So we started Let Me Breathe about 3 years ago when Delhi's air pollution was peak, right? When we were tasting air pollution for the first time, right? You could actually
Right.
taste magnesium and all those things in your mouth, and you can know you
Right.
can't breathe, right? For the first time, we
Right.
realized that living in a home, you can't breathe. And when we launched Let Me Breathe, there were about two, three of us who were just making sure people tell stories which are data driven because everybody is like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do
Right.
with this air, and we
Right.
started the community very small. 3 years later, Let Me Breathe has about 15,000 plus creators who actually tell stories regularly. Beyond just telling stories,
Wow.
it partners with UNEP, it partners with World Bank. It has had some of the biggest decision makers. I think you had Mr. Prakash Javadekar, who was on Let Me Breathe. You have a lot of, like, you have Mr. Aditya Thackeray, who's used the platform to address it. We partner with Twitter, right, as an official platform for the environment thing. And a lot of other credible partners have actually started doing it, where the demand has organically grown for a platform like this. And the trick of
Right.
it is that if you look at any environment story, it goes like this: the world is ending, we need to blame someone. And this
Right.
platform is all about collective action, right? Where you can't
Right.
blame someone. You need to do things on your own, right? If you
Right.
feel like the world is ending, let's do something positive. And we've seen some amazing artists. If you just look at the chefs that we have, they tell you how to reuse peels, right? You see stories like this to people, ground reports on air pollution, to people doing amazing things with plastic. And now this community is just organically growing. It's like the most amazing platform when you look at it. And I think in about 3 days we have Clean Air for Blue Skies Day, which is obviously like an amazing thing to see how air pollution has become like a mainstream thing. And beyond air
Right.
pollution, it talks about climate change, plastic, sustainable fashion, sustainable food. A lot of innovators who come within this. And right
Right.
now, the Electric team is very excited about the Clean Air Blue Skies Day, which is
Right.
literally in I think 3 days, where the world is going to talk about blue skies and how collectively we can make sure that blue skies last longer. So we're very
Absolutely.
excited about it. Yeah.
Right. Right. It's much easier to blame others than take ownership for what you can do, whatever small steps those are. I think these kind of platforms are really needed these days. All right. So next question is about you. You know, you have been associated with some amazing organizations like Change, Oxfam, etc. How was that journey influenced your journey as a storyteller?
So when I joined Change.org, I was the first person they hired in India. Right at that point in time, online petitions in India, people were like, online petitions, or is just a signature campaign, right? What will that do?
Right.
And as someone who's hired in India, like the goal was to see how people believe it as a tool for change and how they can mobilize people using a petition. And that's been an exciting journey, which is what I call like a purposeful way of doing business. We're a business after all, and Change.org as a platform was a purposeful way of doing business. And to see how it has grown as an online petition platform has been very instrumental. And I mean, Plug has a lot of learnings when it comes from the culture that Change used to have about all the people coming together. It has really influenced that quite a bit about how you build an internal team culture, like how Change has, especially a lot of people who are virtually connected globally, right? And
Right.
Oxfam really taught me one thing, which is inequality and how to fight it. And if you look at our creator economy narrative, we are really talking about the 99% and not the 1%, right? And the
Right.
1% of creators are already getting benefits out of it. And we are focusing on the larger chunk of 99%. So when you look at both these things, they've influenced the thinking of it. And a lot of like-minded people have come together to really engage with a platform like Pluck because they feel like it is a platform which is there for the longer haul. All these
Right.
platforms really believe in not just quick change, right? It is about how you change a complete narrative for a very, very
Right.
long time, right?
Right.
So yeah, these two things have been very influential in understanding how everything works, right? Like how do you start
Right.
something and take it big and it lasts longer?
Absolutely, absolutely. That thank God that you had these experiences because you are on an amazing journey. Keep hustling. All right. So my second last question before I leave you, my one another platform which you have is Social Saheli. So we cannot end this conversation without talking about that. So if you can share some insights on what is Social Saheli and how has been the journey, that would be great.
So Vivek, because you have an SMB podcast, and I'm sure, like I'm so happy that you talking about social Saheli because there are like millions of self-help groups in India, right? And we've seen
Right.
some instrumental success in it. We saw like a very successful self-help group in Bihar, and now we're seeing a lot of success coming in UP, right? And
Right.
6 months ago, we started a project with a vision that's saying that if we can really connect these women entrepreneurs with
Right.
mainstream women entrepreneurs and see what stories come out of it. That's pretty much exactly how it started. To see if we can
Right.
go and enable them to become storytellers, what impact they would have, right? And the
Right.
goal of Suki Saheli was very simple that they build a platform, they own a platform that they think that's their own, and they use it to
Right.
increase their business. When we reached out, it was the biggest challenge was to find 200 women who could actually start telling
Right.
stories using their phone and really talk about the stories of their business. So when you go to UP and especially in districts, these women run businesses in their houses, right, in their homes. So
Right.
you enter
Right.
a home, you see like a factory, right, which
Right.
is just they talk about it in a very proud way. This is my product. And the goal was to see instead of really a lot of self-help group narratives are not heroic in nature. So when you
Right.
look at social dailies, you actually see them very heroic in nature when they're telling their stories. But let's talk
Right.
about this. In 6 months, 200 Sahelis, out of them, they used a WhatsApp business account number to engage more Sahelis. We could only do 200, but there's a lineup of 5,000 social Sahelis across India who want to become a social Saheli because it has
Wow.
impacted so many businesses, right? And if you look at it,
Right.
it's really the economy model, right? Everybody's going
Right.
after self-help, everybody's going after shop commerce. And this is a
Right.
shop commerce model where rural women entrepreneurs are able to sell outside their village by simply telling a story. So when you look at it, these Sahelis are viral on Instagram. These Sahelis are viral on WhatsApp. But the most beautiful moment that I like about Social Saheli is when a self-help group woman calls us, like an entrepreneur from a self-help group. They go like, "Hi, मैं social Saheli बोल रही हूँ," and it's this beautiful moment, right? It's in a
Right.
platform, and the
Right.
message
Right.
is gone to so many women that the first thing they say is, "मैं social Saheli बोल रही हूँ." They don't say, "I belong to a self-help group." Like they say, "I'm a social
Right.
Saheli. I want to know how to tell
Right.
my story, and this is my
Right.
business." And if you
Amazing.
and one of the biggest things I think it might be useful is during the lockdown, a lot of small businesses in some of the most rural areas shut down. But these self-help groups, because of the training and all those things they had, this last story that I'll share with you is in Varanasi, where a lot of silk weavers were not being able to get business because there were lesser weddings happening, there were less
Right.
people buying saris, they weren't able to weave. And you had this sob story which was being told by a lot of weavers when we were there, right? But these
Right.
self-help group women were there, and one of the self-help groups we were working with, the story that they said is, we realized that saris are not going to sell. So they shifted their business into making masks and products for that. and they were able to
Right.
scale their business and buy new machines and get more women. So to work on to that, right? And it's this beautiful moment when you notice entrepreneurs on ground changing things and pivoting to newer strategies, finding new supply chains. And I think the biggest learning which us as creators, us as businessmen already know is they actually gained their customers' trust by forming something with them. They did partnerships which weren't just like allowing them to either sell to the government or sell to the village. They did partnerships
Right.
with platforms like Shmart and now Social Saili to be able to sell a larger audience where the customer can engage with the products that they're doing. And I found these
Right.
stories so inspiring as entrepreneurs, and especially as startups who have shut down during the pandemic, right? To learn like
Right.
pivoting is such a great, exciting journey that you can actually have.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just getting goosebumps hearing about it. Actually, it's again, as I mentioned earlier, these are kind of things which change lives. Somebody having a small achar, unit in some village, able to sell it to people sitting in Delhi who love achar. It
Yeah.
can change their lives. It can change lives of their family members, the society itself. So like I have a message here, think outside the box, right
Yes.
behind me. So it's a think outside the box kind of idea, right? So before I leave you, my final question, which I ask every guest who comes here, is, because we are in midst of pandemic still, how has COVID-19 impacted Tamseel as a person, and how has it impacted Plug TV, Social Saheli, and all the other amazing work you do?
I think it's a beautiful question to sum up the conversation, right? And
Right.
before I came, actually, I was talking to an entrepreneur friend of mine about personal and professional work-life balance,
Right.
and I think from mental health, it was a big challenge, right? During the first lockdown, I lost my aunt who used to stay with us, and she got COVID. So and we didn't know she had COVID, and she got very early COVID, and all of us felt
Right.
sick. And at that time, COVID hadn't entered. She was
Right.
really weak, and she got affected, which because of complications of COVID, she died much later. And that, as a personal life, it's been a very intense mental health journey, right? And when it
Right.
comes to and platforms, I think from a business perspective, it's been really um, beneficial for us because we had so many people who were wanting to become creators. We had so many people who wanted stories that they couldn't find, so that way, it was really good for all three platforms. And I think Social Saheli was born just 2 days before the pandemic struck India. It grew during the
Right.
pandemic. Let Me Breathe as a platform is talking about climate change so that people can come together to avoid the pandemic. And we were
Right.
able to tap into new markets. For Plug TV, I think it's been amazing. I think we were able to really engage with COVID conversations and be at the front of it. During the second
Right.
lockdown, I think 80% of the Plug team, Let Me Breathe team, Social Saili, all were out. Everybody
Right.
was out. They were done with COVID. They were not. They were all out. I think that was the biggest challenge to see that we had scaled as an
Right.
organization and the team had fallen sick. There was no way to really take on the work. So that was a very interesting challenge to navigate for us.
Right.
But yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, I think we were able to really enter into new territories. I think we're starting two new genres on Plug TV, which is finance and gaming. And we're excited about this because we come from a very different background. But we've been
Right.
able to enable creators in the finance, crypto, NFT world to gamers who are into this amazing gaming. And we're very excited about this. I think just
Right.
it gave us time to experiment and learn a lot of new things, build
Right.
technology, and exciting that way. Yeah.
Right. I'm pretty optimistic about it, because the you are a simple person with a very straightforward vision that can change and impact lives. So I'm pretty sure success will be here sooner than later. And stay in touch. And thank you so much. I'm super grateful to you to taking 1 hour out of your time and coming on the show. And I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Really nice
All right.
connecting with you. And
All right.
have a lovely
All right.
uh,
All right, so that was Tamseel. I don't know about you, but I enjoyed this conversation. I love meeting people like him. It's a wonderful journey they are on. And I don't know. I'm trying to figure this out myself. What drives folks like Tamseel? It's he simply put his achievements in one or two sentences, but I can only imagine, even I cannot even imagine the kind of effort that goes into it, right? So that's why this show is here. We want to understand what drives people like Tamseel and all those other guests who have come on the show. So I want all of you to stay safe. COVID is still here. Sanitize your hand, wear your double mask, triple mask. I don't care. Stay safe, and I'll see you all next week with another guest. Thank you so much.